AI is such a buzzword right now, and I think everybody's kind of selling those widgets, or like they're selling widgets or they're selling the patches to people's businesses. And I think it's just, I don't want to say doing a disservice and by any means, because I do think that if it's implemented in the correct way, it can definitely help people's businesses. But I think taking a really holistic approach to what is the client life cycle that they're going through in your business, and like, are you actually capturing people at every step of the process, or are you leaving, like, what are you leaving on the table? Do you know what I mean? And where are those leads going?
Yeah, yeah, I think being able to identify the like where they come in and where they're trying to get to. I know we talked a little bit about desired outcome last week, but like Drew, you were just talking about like helping them identify exactly like where their hole is and their leak and their pain point.
Yeah.
The shiny tool of AI is interesting. It's there's so much out there. I mean, I am inundated by it, and of course, I'm sure you're the same. The Facebook algorithm, like because we're in the space and we're learning about the space, we just
Yeah.
I get tidal waved by new tools. And every now and then I have to grab my wife's phone, funny enough, and look at her Facebook to remind myself that like I'm being targeted on algorithm. Because when I go on her stuff, it's like Sephora and Zara and nothing to do with AI, and it's almost a breath of fresh air that like okay, it's everybody else is getting
Yeah.
targeted in their own way.
I had that same aha moment because I was, no matter what, like, you can feel overwhelmed, especially as a business owner. And like I said, you and I have kind of talked about this a little bit, but a lot of times what happens is like you're getting inundated by so much, and there's a lot of things that are similar in the market, but they're not the same. So then you wind up going down all these rabbit holes of like, okay, well, how can I implement this in my business? Is it worth it? How much does it cost? What's this one cost? What does this do differently? And so I think, like I said, I think the approach really is like, if you're not using technical systems, if you're not using AI, or at least like some sort of automation workflows, you're definitely missing the boat.
Yeah.
But I also think from a standpoint, you have to really get a full picture of your business and your client life cycle to have a real understanding of where, like, what tools do you actually need? Because you can over automate and create a process that like actually isn't conducive to you closing business. Like, the
Yeah.
goal is like, what's the ideal client like cycle? It's like, fill out this form, schedule a call, close business, follow up, onboard, follow up, ask for referrals and reviews, right? If you know what your ideal client life cycle is, then you can start to build all the variations off of that. Like, this person I met with, but they weren't ready to buy, where do they go?
Yeah.
Right? Or like, this isn't a qualified lead. They might be someday. Where do we put them? Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I just,
you'll find those few buckets where like, okay, they've come in on the forum, they're interested in your space, but they're kind of like a fly on the wall, and they're watching your company, interested in utilizing your services, but they're not quite ready to buy, but you don't want to like push them away or scare them off. So you kind of put them in a bucket of like, well, I'll just provide this person information. There's like
right.
those people will just continually get simple info about me to build trust and relationship, and eventually someone will step out of that bucket and into the next one, which is like engagement and ready to purchase. And like
Right.
then they'll start to move and leapfrog through those buckets until they get to a lifetime client. I mean, I'm trying to, and I'm sure you are, is like I'm trying to build partnerships and relationships with clients that I'll work for with or for forever. I
Yeah.
mean, I see value in the product that I offer. I'm sure you see value in the product that you offer, which are both very similar. And how can we like get a client in to our ecosystem that will stay, forever as long as their business thrives, right?
Right. I do think, really, from a standpoint too, you and I have a very similar approach of how do you create a partnership, and how do you consistently create value, right? And so I think that what's happening in the market is you have a lot of those people that are selling the widgets
Yeah.
and are getting inundated. And so the average business owner is already time constrained immensely, right? Like, they already don't have a lot of time to work on their business because they're in it, right? So then on top of it, now you're going to add in a whole nother layer of I need to go research all of these different softwares. It's easier to just say, I don't want to do it than it is to take that step. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I think like you and I were talking about is like the if somebody can understand and go through their client life cycle, they're going to have some real glaring spots where they're like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Can we automate that? Or is that something that should be automated? Or do I need to assign somebody in my company to handle this?
Yeah.
Right. Um, and it's just hard. Like most business owners don't have the time to evaluate it. And I think we've created some tools that are are simple and easy for people to kind of do a quick self-evaluation. You know what I mean? Um, but after that, it's just about taking like, 30 minutes here or there and going through somewhat of a process and figuring out where do I actually need help? Like this thing looks cool, but is it worth the
How,
money? Is it
yeah.
actually
How
gonna
can I,
help me?
how can I use it? How is it going to better, how is it going to be not more headache for one, right? How is it going
Right.
to help make my business more efficient? How is it going to help me earn more money? Because every business is investing in something for it to help them earn more revenue, right? Whether it's booking
That's
jobs or
it.
getting clients, or just making their team more efficient that they can get more work done in the day. But like, what is the shiny object, so to speak, going to be that's going to help make my business better? But I think what we're saying is like the one step further is like, how can I find the right people to help me bring that tool into my company so that way it doesn't take away energy from my company? Like, I can't remember what I
Yep.
was, maybe it was an Andy Frisella, the MFCEO podcast. I don't know if you ever listen to that. He talks about like you have 100, if you think about your energy in the day, you have 100% energy. You have a battery, and every day, that battery slowly gets drained and then gets recharged, right? And if you're too busy spending like 20% all over the place and you never actually like execute on things to help like
Mhm.
drive whatever you're working on, your business or the person's business forward, you're
Yeah.
just depleting that energy over and over and over again, right, in four different buckets. So it's like, how can you bring someone in that'll help reserve the energy, help bring in the tool that'll actually add a little more battery life to your day, and kind of push it forward? I can't remember where it was. I'll try and find it. I'll send it to you after. It's such a great podcast. It really
Yeah.
like is a clarifying moment of like, okay, for me as a business owner, I need things that are going to make me more efficient. And for me to sell stuff out of my business, I need to be selling things or, helping people be more efficient. Like that is really the name of the game, of what it comes down to. Like that is what every single product is trying to do is efficiency.
Right.
Whether you're putting windows in your house or like ergonomics into your desk, like you're trying to help yourself be better every single time. So to think of something that's going to be like detrimental, but it's still going to cost you money, like it's just a waste. And
Yeah.
there's so much out there right now.
Well, and I think like, you made a really good point too, is like the what's going to save like, as a business owner, like is this going to save me time and make me more money, right? And if you have something that can do both of those things that doesn't interrupt the flow of business, and I think that's really the one thing I've struggled with that I'm learning much better, right? Is there's 11 stages of a client life cycle. Now, not every business hits every single one of those stages, right? But if you can come into a business and evaluate, hey, this is the most urgent need. How do we solve that problem? But it's not only just solving that problem, first off, but it's understanding like if we solve this problem, what are the rest of the stages? How do we need to upgrade the rest of those areas of the business? So if I'm going to go spend money on SEO or I'm going to spend money on this whatever it is, this technology or anything like that, and that's in stage one. Well, what happens in stage two, three, four, and five is going to be what actually makes spending the money in stage one worth it, right? And so a lot of times it's like you can put a patch, and I'm kind of reiterating what I said, but like you can put a patch on a lot of things and it's going to be good for a certain amount of time. But if you continue to grow, that patch is going to break. So,
Yeah.
how do you create the full systems to make sure that your systems can actually grow with you?
Well,
Right.
and I
And
think you
that's,
you nailed it there with the word evaluate, right? Like taking time to properly evaluate or have someone come into your company and sit beside you. This is why big companies have management consultants, right? They look at their management structure and their organizational flow, and they hire somebody for. I know a couple management consultants. Those firms make a lot of money. They get paid uber bucks to come in for a third party outside perspective to review their processes, right? And so,
Right.
taking that down to a smaller scale is like, Tom, who runs heating and plumbing company. He's got a staff of, let's say 5 to 10, but he's still sitting on his own. He doesn't have an operations manager. He's kind of running everything. Like, that's the perfect ideal client for to have someone come in and sit down. Not for a big amount of time and not for a huge amount of money, but like have a review and an evaluation, and then figure out exactly what they need, the right patch. I love that analogy that you said, like, we're going to grow and the patch is going to break. But like, it shouldn't be a patch. It should be like, a Tetris piece in a block, right? Like, it should be something that's going to be
Yeah.
there to stay, and it should help strengthen them. And then reevaluate, like you said, what is the knock-on effect from now bringing in that new entity, or new item, or new
Right.
tool or new service. And so then how can we then move down the line? It's like, okay, we fixed that. That looks good. And now it's causing pressure on this area. Now we need to, reevaluate again a month later or 2 months later and look at what's the next thing that can be done. Or can the thing that we brought in be adapted to work, on that side? Like, that's how we connected, was talking about AI tools and AI engagement,
Right.
right? And so I think, like, naturally, really, that is what it is. It's just like, how does it
Yeah.
fit in each different little pocket that it needs to fit inside of?
Yeah, big time. And I think too, like, yeah, you hit it on. I like the Tetris analogy, right? Because a lot of times as a small growing business owner, right? Like, you're not somebody that has like thousands of employees and things of that nature. Your time is so valuable, right? And so I think one of the things you and I have discussed just on like modifications we've made in our business working with our clients is like, how do you how do you get to the decision as quick as possible, but also not shortcutting, right? And so it's hard sometimes as a business owner to be like, I know it needs to happen, but the thought of implementing something new and taking time away from what I'm currently doing is just daunting because that's an extra 20, 30 hours a week, right? And so I think the approach that I've been trying to take lately is really like, hey, let's take 30 minutes at a time. Like, you have 30, I know you're busy, but you have 30 minutes, and let's just tackle the first couple stages. Like, let's just identify what we're doing. Like, how are we bringing leads in? How are we qualifying them? Where are they going? Like, let's just do that part because that immediately is going to have an impact on your business. Because if you're getting 100 leads and 70 of them are not qualified, but you're spending more than half your time just trying to figure out if they're qualified or not, man, that's a immediate time saver for somebody, right? So how do we get you to focus 100% of your time on the 30 people? Now we've solved that problem. Okay, great. Now what are the next steps? Like, what nurture series do we need? How are we getting people into like the sales process? Like, what does that actually look like? But you can create the patches as long as you have an understanding of where that what the end goal is, right?
Yeah, that process of filtering is like, stands the test of time. Like, we filter big
Yeah.
rocks down to smaller rocks, down to dirt, down to topsoil. Like, we try and always extracting the best of the best. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that what was filtered out isn't useful. It still can be. That's like what we talked about with those different buckets, like getting the
Right.
right leads into the right one. Okay, this person's a tire kicker. They're a fly on the wall. They're interested, but they're not
Right.
ready to commit. It's like selling something on Facebook Marketplace. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's the same concept, and creating that automation of the qualifying stage, but without, I think a big fear right now is like AI is taking over, is taking jobs, talking about this resistance and hesitation to it. And it doesn't have to be. Like, the front end of the sales process still requires a human element for now. It may change down the
Yeah.
line, of course, but there needs to be someone there monitoring it. And so you've got the person that you're hiring for SEO to bring the leads in. And then you have the first face of the company, or the first step of the company, which could be just a junior salesperson or sales rep, monitoring how an automation is filtering the leads as they're coming in through this,
Yep.
the lead magnet or lead generation or ad spend. And the AI is qualifying and starting to separate, but that's where that human element can come in and start to like look at that and say, okay, these are our quality leads. Let's look through them. Let's now engage them in a certain way. And you can then starting a new engagement program through AI, or that person could just be picking up the phone knowing, oh, I've got 30 quality leads that need a human touch element to close them, right? Because
Big time.
I don't like the AI closing at the moment. I like the AI opening, right? I think that
Yeah.
is a great tool for opening and engagement. In terms of closing, like, I don't know, I'm still not 100% there to like actually be closed on. But what is closing, right? Closing could be qualifying and engagement and nurture all the way up to a certain point, but the human element still feels good about like I'm giving my money to this or that or talking to this person. So that's
Yeah. And
it's hard to wrap your
I
head
think
around.
you hit on something this is my opinion, right? So I
Yeah.
guess everyone take that for what it's worth. But I do think there's been such a life cycle. Like I've been in business and sales for 15 years, right? And through that whole life cycle, there's been such a drastic change in the way that people are getting sold or being connected with. And it used to be like you just cold called, like you had a list and you called people, right? And then email became a thing. And then there was a period of time where emailing was like the way to sell people, you know what I mean? Or at least get people interested. Then texting became a thing. Then it was cold calling, email, and texting. And now we have AI. And now I think there's still an opportunity to make money through those different texting, email, things like that. But I think people are becoming so used to getting bombarded. Like, I mean, just sitting on this call, I've gotten 15 emails already. And I'm not going
In
to
one of
read.
your email boxes, let alone the other three that are
Right.
filtering
And I
out
got
all
a
the
bunch
junk
of
email.
emails. Exactly. So it's really one of those things where it's like, how do you, I think people are going to, I think everything's cyclical. And I think you're going to see the people that are going to win, in my opinion, are the people that implement AI in a way that makes them and their processes and their business more efficient, but still has that human element to it. Because now you're getting to the point where you're watching videos and you're like, is that a real person? You know what I mean? Like, and it's cool, but I think you're going to wind up seeing people reverting back to that human interaction. So, what is it that you automate that's not going to be a detriment to your business? How do you still have the human element to your business that um, makes people feel comfortable that what they're buying are this service? And I think you're going to see a lot of the service-based industries, like house service and touch services. And those businesses, the ones that are going to win there are the ones that are going to figure out the automation because those aren't going to go away for the time being, right? Like you're still going to get your nails done, your massages, your all those things. Now, who knows with technology, but you still need the plumber, you still need the roofer, you still need a lot of those things, right? There's still a human element to all of those things. So how
Yeah,
do you become more
they just
efficient?
need that filter, right? And that's really what it comes down to is like I'm about to pitch a plumber, and I know they have a small outfit, and every time I call him, he answers the phone, right? And if he doesn't answer the phone, he's probably hands in the toilet or something. He can't actually physically
Right.
touch his phone. And so, like, how do you create like just a simple, smart voicemail for him, right? Because you don't really want it to be a voicemail that he has to then go in and check. But like, how can there be a filter there where his phone rings? It's announcing that, hey, Justin's busy at the moment, but I can take some information from you and I get it to him quickly and get him to call you back. And then when Justin is ready to call back, he's armed with like the actionable point items of what he needs to reply to, and they don't have to like go waste time on trying to figure out a problem or something. He may actually even have the solution as he's making the call back. So like that's just something that's could be such a simple little tool that could be so useful without like this whole big revamp of a small company, which I think there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of hesitation and resistance to smaller companies about like bringing something so big and new in, and how do I use it and how do I make it effective? Because I don't know about you. I think your background's restaurant, like from years ago with your family, right? And so, how many
A
times
lot
has
of different
someone
industries. Yeah.
how many times someone like knocked on the door like, hey, we have this great new thing for your kitchen, and you're like, okay, that sounds great, and you buy it, and then it just like collects dust on the shelf, but you either
Right.
paid for it for a bunch of money one time, or you signed up for it and it took you like 6 months to realize I'm never going to use this. And so
Right.
I'm guilty. I probably have one or two subscriptions that I need to cut myself out of because you just forget about it. And but
Yeah.
you also you're resistant to then letting it go because you think, oh, I'm going to use it at some point. So it's like, how do you bridge that gap between like interest and actual implementation and like make it effective? I think
Yeah.
that's a hard challenge for folks like me, guys like me and you, right? Guys and girls,
Yeah.
not just us, right?
Well,
Um,
and I think too, what I would say from like a business perspective, the one thing that I think I've kind of done in a way to filter that out is you more or less need to ask yourself like where are the detriments or where are the shortcomings in my business, right? Is there a tool that can help me become more efficient, and what is the value there, right? And I think we keep going back to, and it does take a little time. It doesn't have to take months or weeks or even, a ton of hours, but I do think for every business owner, really tracking and putting down on paper or some sort of document or wherever that is, and really just reflecting on what is the client life cycle. Like, if I'm the client, what do I want to have happen here? Like, if I have an AI voice that's picking up my phone calls when I'm not available, how would I feel about that? Well, it's not really detrimental because they're still getting my information, right? So I would be okay with that. Okay, good. Like, how, you know what I mean? So like understanding, like, if you're in a service-based business like a plumber or whatever it is, do you care that you talk to an AI person, or do you care that your issue got fixed? And how quickly and efficiently did that get fixed? And so I think really looking at, when we're talking about client lifecycle in 11 stages, right? But the real goal is, how do you go from 1 to 11 as fast as possible, right? And how do you provide the value, right? Because the quicker, the more efficient you are in that client life cycle, the more repeatable your business is, the more money you're going to make. Like that, that's what it comes down to. But you have to start somewhere, and you have to be able to see the vision of the company, or at least have somebody come in and say, hey, let's walk through this together, and then point out the areas that you're seeing, based on what I'm giving you. You need to either be able to do that effectively for yourself, or bring in somebody else that has the ability to be that third person that says, why are you doing this?
yeah,
Like, is there a
that
reason?
like
you
is
know?
there really should be the like, for especially for like yourself, the immediate lead magnet is like a free, like, not free, but like complimentary consultation. Like, let's just sit down and have a conversation. And if
Yeah,
in that conversation, the development is value identifying an issue and the solution is there, then like that should be a no-brainer for those two parties to work together, right? Like for
big time.
yourself and someone, like creating that little bit of time to have a conversation for both sides. I mean, it's hard on one side to just keep giving out free time. Obviously, you want to make
Yeah,
sure you're doing it with the right people, and it's hard for business owners to carve out time in their schedule to want to sit down with a stranger. Let's be honest, right? Like some sort of salesman stranger. But like
right.
the idea of like the two parties actually doing that for the purpose of trying to figure out that problem solution set, because at the end of the day, the person that is approaching the business does have the solution. It's there, and it may not be right for that one business, but the two have to talk to find out. But chances are, like if you're targeting and you're focusing on your niche or niche, I know it's depending on who you are. I call it a niche. I don't know. US, I got to like, let's settle the score. You niche or niche?
Both, I
Oh yeah.
think. I think it just depends. Like, if I'm,
Where who are you
I don't
targeting?
know. I don't know if I'm one way or the other. It's like process or processes, right? Like,
Yes, I
I don't
know.
know. You can get both of those. So I think I say them both, honestly.
I say them both down depending on who I talk to. Sometimes I say it and then I can see that person's like, oh, I don't say it like that, and then like they were kind of like, I can tell we're opposite. But my wife's English, so like she says niche, I say niche. But then when I hear U.S. people, they say niche sometimes. But anyways, going back to like those two connecting, you should have already identified your ideal customer, and so you should be targeting in that niche. So that way, you know the solution that you're trying to bring. Like I use
Yeah.
that example for the plumbing, and this kind of like smart instead of a voice AI, like, a smart voicemail, right? Like just kind of changing it a
Yeah.
little bit, circling back to the resistance of AI. Well, if it's a smart voicemail, well, we all have voicemail, and I hate my voicemail. It just stacks up, right? And so I know I have a
Right.
solution. I'm bringing it in. We're going to have a conversation about it. And really, the two parties should probably agree on it and then have a business relationship because the end goal, the desired outcome for both of them is to create efficiencies. One is to be more efficient so
Big
they can
time.
make. Actually, I would say the desired outcome is to make money, really, because
Yeah.
the one company that is receiving the service wants to be more efficient so they can earn more revenue, and the one company that's giving the service wants to sell the service so they can earn more revenue. So, like, really, the desired outcome for both comes down to like earning more revenue, but having the
Yeah.
two parties agree on it, so there's an exchange that's mutually agreed on, right? So that's
And I think for you and I, like just based off the conversations we've had, it's important for me that the businesses I'm working with are they're either getting value and getting more time back, right? Which is hopefully increasing their revenue, or they're doing things more efficiently, which is increasing their revenue, right? So like if I'm not able to, if I'm able to have a 30-minute conversation with somebody and say, hey, these are all the areas of your business, like let's walk through them. And I know that I can, in the next 2 weeks, I can help them implement something into their business that's going to save them more time or increase their revenue long term, then to me it's a good fit because the value I'm providing is very equatable, right? Um, and I think you take that approach very much too, where it's like I'm not gonna sit here and sell you some widget that you may or may not need. Like, is this something that actually is going to help your business? And if it is, then it should be a no-brainer because it shouldn't really affect the flow of business. It should be something that is implemented and then the process just changes a little bit. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
added and adapt. What's your Drew? What's your like ideal customer? What do you like? What's your zone of genius that you feel great in communicating with? Like, what's that niche for you?
So full transparency and honesty. I've struggled with this. And the reason is because my background has been in so many different industries. Like you mentioned like restaurant, like hospitality, real estate, financial industry. I was in credit card processing. There's been so many different industries, marketing, sales. A lot of what I've done throughout my career has been in the sales, marketing, operations, recruiting. So like a lot of the things that are fundamentally how do you make a business grow, you know? And so to be honest, I've struggled with the specific niche or niche, right? There we go. Um, but I think really
Those two
from a
words are going to be ruined for us after
I
this.
know. I think really from a standpoint, what I would say is if there's a business that is profitable, but there's a business owner that's drowning a little bit, and they're just trying to figure out like how do I get more time back, right? Um, a lot of times I can figure out solutions. Like even the clients that I currently have right now are so across the board because most of my business, all of it has been referral based. And so a lot of times it's that's a blessing and a curse sometimes at the same time because you're building custom things for those businesses, right? Websites and automations, all that stuff. But um, I'm working on the niching down. Um, but I think really from a standpoint, what I would say is just like business owners that know they need to make some changes, that they need to become more efficient, they need to implement certain things, but they're just not sure where to turn and they don't have the time to go evaluate all the stuff on their own,
Yeah,
right?
so you like the problem and trying to uncover the solution, but what gravitates you into the business? I know it's referrals. most of them are referrals, but it's the motivation and drive from the owner for change, right? Like they've
Yeah.
recognized it. You're not trying to pitch them on it, and so like that's where that kind of mutual agreement comes in. It seems, is that right? Kind of
Yeah, I think really, I would say that would be all of the clients that I have in my business is like they were having a conversation with somebody I worked with, and they were like, "Hey, you need to talk with Drew." And a lot of times we just have that initial conversation, and it's just a matter of figuring out like, is this a good fit, or like, do you need this website right now, or do you need to focus on other areas of your business? And that's really my biggest thing is like, let's have the conversation. Let's figure out what you're currently doing. And if it makes sense, if I feel like I can provide value to them, then typically we figure it out, you know? And that's the approach. And I keep getting told I got to niche down and all this stuff, but it's hard because it's, you know,
I think it comes naturally. Like I'm saying right now, it's almost a bit of a buckshot approach, right? I'm like my focus, and I just kind of found this my why. I don't know if you read Simon Sinek starts with why. I was just talking about this in a YouTube story
I
or
haven't yet, no.
Instagram story. Oh, I put it on your list. It's great. It's like Apple and all the big like visionaries, they start with why, right? It's called the golden circle. And it's like why, how, and what, as opposed to like what am I selling, how am I going to sell it, and why am I selling it? It's like why am I selling it? What's my purpose? And then it's like how am I going to sell it? And then it's what am I selling? So it's like you're selling vision, you're selling the desired outcome of what a business owner wants. And so my why clicked in the other day. It was like I love customer engagement. That's what I love. I worked in 10 years in a hospitality industry and short-term rentals, thousands of interactions. I think we have like 7,000 reviews that we've racked up over 10 year, a decade career. And all through that, it's like, someone's interested in your product. Okay, you've communicated with them. Then someone's about to buy your product and they need nurturing. And then someone buys your product and they need confirmation. And then because it's hospitality, someone's like arriving at your product to check in. They need information, and then they've checked in, and like they need follow up to make sure everything's okay. So that way you don't find out at the end of the stay that like they only had one wine glass when they needed four or something like that, right? And so like there's all these like
Sure.
little moments of interaction. They're not big ones, but it's like I'm holding your hand. I'm there for you. I'm right here when you need me, and I've got the answers to the questions. And then, of course,
Right.
at the end, there's a review process, and then it doesn't have to end there. Now, granted, I'm in a bit of a tourist destination, so I get a lot of people that do come here once. But there is a site that is cyclical, right? There is return customers, and so like then you want the review, and then you want some sort of like way to engage them to get them back again, right? Or at least re-engage them when they come back. And so like customer engagement is like my why, and so I'm in that weird moment right now where that can apply to so many different industries. I'm trying to figure out which ones I really want to serve the best and be more
Yeah.
efficient serving, and ones that I can see, of course, low hanging fruit, easy wins, right? So it's like, where could a simple tool that I can develop, that I can replicate, go into one company and then, implement it, and then take that and make a few changes and implement it into the next company. And now I don't want to create competing companies. Like I'm trying to geographically not sell essentially in the same fishing hole, right? Because I don't want the two companies having the exact same product, and then they're competing against each other, and then I'd be feeling I'd be doing a
That's
disservice.
That's the hard. It's funny that we're talking about this, and it goes back to a lot of times it's easier to teach somebody else than it is to like actually do it yourself sometimes. And I literally have a course that I created on referrals, right? Like how do you actually create, like we have sales systems and we have sales uh processes, we have all of that when it comes to sales, right? A lot of times we don't implement the referrals correctly. And so what I realized is like this is a full system that I've used for a very long time. And I was having a talk with one of my clients this morning, and she asked me the same question you just did. Well, like, what's your like niche? Like, who are you gonna like continue to work with? And I realized in that referral mastery course that I created, I talk about identifying your core four, right? So like who are the four? And if it's one industry, that's fine. But like for most business owners, like there's typically four areas that you'd love to get referred to, and then there's kind of some like mind joggers after that, right? And so I was literally, it's funny that you're asking me now because she just asked me this morning. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I advise other people that don't have a good referral system in place to use this, but you got to identify at least your core four, right? And so it's funny that you're asking this because ultimately at the end of the day, I think niching down is good, but I think when you're starting off too, like you should have a few different industries that you're at least testing out on certain things. You know what I
Totally.
mean?
Yeah, and
And
you might develop yourself and realize that like, oh, what I thought was going to be good, actually this is better. Like
yeah,
focusing on B2C and then recognizing, oh, actually B2B is, a better zone or area or pathway for me to be in, and
exactly.
or vice versa. I'm B2B and I'm trying to do, SaaS into B2B, and then I recognize like, oh, actually I just need to come up with something that I can replicate and sell B2C that people are going to be happy with. And then I bring value by being the person that helps implement it or manage it, right? I think a lot of marketers go through that too. Like, they're doing Google ads, they're doing Facebook ads, they're trying to like cover the whole ad spectrum, but like really, and then they're trying to do video and they're trying to do print and they're trying to do copy. And it's like, you could be a jack
Yeah.
of all, which is great, but maybe you just need to focus on video for Facebook. And that's where you're like, your zone of genius is in. And like, you're the
Yeah.
person that's hired to just make compelling videos for Facebook ads and then have those
Yeah, and
Facebook ads
this
run.
this may be the exact opposite piece of knowledge that maybe some people need to hear, but I think expect like if you're introducing a new product or you're introducing a new area of your business or whatever that may be, I think that niching down too soon can actually be a detriment. And the reason is for like what you just said is like I understand that over time you're going to get a certain amount of data and touch points that you're going to understand like nope, this is the route I need to go. And so I think that in the beginning, it is good to test certain things out, right? Because like you and I may be sitting here talking right now and saying, yep, service-based industries are the only people we want to work with. And then we turn around and it's like, well, this whole subset of people actually can benefit just as well, right? So the other thing that I always think is important is like if you're able to create, like say it's service, say it's plumbers, right? If you can create a process and work with plumbers and things of that nature, that becomes replicable much in your life cycle, right? That we talked about from them from lead to like becoming a client and ongoing becomes shorter and shorter. And so a lot of times as you're growing from a business perspective, you can potentially then bring somebody in that just purely focuses on plumbing, right? Which then gives you the opportunity to say, hey, does this work with roofers? Let's go test it out. Now you have another avenue, right? And so, yeah, you're niching down, but at the same point in time, you're never going to really know that in the beginning. And so, like, you can create streams of income in different industries with the same products, but you're never going to know until you actually do it. And so, I think it's important that you have a vision of where you want to go. But I've always had a saying, not always, but is like you need to have your big goal in front of you but don't have blinders on because like you're never leaving room for those miracles to happen, right? If I'm a horse with blinders on and I can't see any other opportunities, I may miss the opportunity that's actually going to get me to my end goal faster because I'm so focused. And so it's like you need to have a vision of where you're going with your business, but you also can't have blinders on because there may be a new person that comes into your life in 6 months that completely changes the trajectory of your business. And all of a sudden you're at your goal in 3 years instead of five or two instead of five.
Yeah, I mean that.
So,
I can speak to that firsthand. That like twice now, I got into short-term rentals because of some suggestions from people. I was so focused on something else in a career path in occupational health and safety and construction based on previous knowledge and experience. And then I ended up in the short-term rental pathway just and the entrepreneur life based on some just suggestions and just kind of observations of things that were happening like at an arm's length to me. And
yeah.
boom. And then, of course, 10 years later, that shifted again. And I found another pathway. And it's funny, I talked about this. I was having a little reflection moment about you just never know who you're going to meet and how that relationship is going to unfold. And this is a perfect example because you and I
Right.
met off a post on a school group, and now here we are having a great conversation. We've had another great conversation, and our businesses are, our lives are starting to, make a little, starting to entwine a bit, and who knows what'll happen in 1, 2, 5, or 10 years off of this little,
Right.
off a like or a comment. And the pathway that I'm in now in, AI tools and implementation and automations is from a friend that I met in Thailand on a backpacking trip in 2011, that he was starting to get into the space. His background is like digital ads and media. He worked for Yellow Pages for a long time, and he recognized the AI space is growing. It's like, you know, that's a perfect moment. Is like having the blinders on. If I hadn't talked to Josh, if I hadn't a conversation about AI, if I hadn't learned a little bit about more about it, I probably wouldn't have had an understanding, which then propelled me down this route, which I'm super excited about now.
Yeah.
And that's not so much niching down. That's really just like an observation and nod to the actual blinder, like what you're talking about horse blinders on. Like, don't limit yourself too much.
Yeah.
Keep some feelers out there. Keep your peripherals wide enough that you can absorb, but maybe don't expel too much energy out that way unless you see that there's opportunity, and then explore it a little bit. It's like the classic shiny object syndrome, right? Like, stay
Yeah.
focused, be interested, but don't get too distracted.
I think two things I want to say that just like you're spot on. And I think one, I think it's really good to be curious, right? Without having to make a complete to change your trajectory completely, right? And so I think a lot of times, like if whoever's listening to this, or maybe it's just us, right, that we can just take this own advice. But I think really from a standpoint, I think curiosity is a very good thing. But I think always being able to take a step back and saying, like, is this, and it goes back to what we talked about implementing solutions in people's businesses, like, I'm curious about this thing, but how does this help me? Like, does this help? Does this save me time? Does this do these things, right? Or, hey, I'm gonna go off in a little bit of a different direction in my business. What does that look like? How does that feel? Those sort of things. And so I think curiosity is very important, but I think having enough data and information before making major decisions is also super important.
Totally, yeah.
And
It's lagging metric stuff, right? So like, you're
yeah,
not going to know until after the fact sometimes, and then you go into the review period of what you just did. Sorry, did you have one
big
more?
time.
You did one point. Did you catch the
The
two?
other, yeah, the
Yeah.
other thing that just like popped into my head too is I think when we're talking about like who we want to work with and things like that, and I think you and I are both similar on this. If I'm wrong, you can tell me. But I think the other person that I enjoy working with the most is a business owner that's open to they're also equally curious, right? Like, because at the end of the day, if most of the time what I've seen is the most successful businesses over time are the leaders within that company that are consistently adapting and changing, but they're not doing it on a knee-jerk reaction. They're doing it from a, hey, I'm curious, how do we make this better? I'm curious, is this new revenue stream worth our time and effort, right? And a lot of times those are the business owners that they collect the data, they talk to people, they get outside perspectives, and they realize like, yep, I need to implement this, but they're doing it from a place of knowledge as opposed to this shiny object looks cool, it's going to save my whole life, right? That's never a good place to go. So yeah, I think you can niche down all day, but I think the business owners that are at least open to having conversations and are transparent about where they're currently at, those are the ones that I can help the most because they're open to the outside perspective that they understand I cannot have that perspective because I'm in it on a day-to-day basis. So their perspective is important because they're going to see things that I'm not going to see because from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, I'm in it all day long. You know
Right.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
would.
Yeah, they
Same.
won't. They can't step out of it. The curiosity. I was just sorry. I was trying to look. I'm thinking of that Steve Jobs quote. I think he's at UCLA or something like that. He's given a alumni speech, and it's hungry, stay foolish, right? Which I think he talks about curiosity in that speech a bit, but it's the same concept too. It's like be interested, be aware, don't be afraid to fall forward, don't be afraid to take a couple of chances. And like when you talk about the business owner that does implement that, does stays curious, and then these other bits of just staying hungry and staying a bit foolish, which I think is a funny spin on it. It's like those are the little mini they're entrepreneurs, they're the mini little visionaries that are
Right.
always trying to fall forward, are always trying to take a little step, always trying to take a little risk, and are the ones that are curious enough to try new things to
Yeah.
see if it'll work. I think the most dangerous place you can be in is that is a space where you're not trying new things anymore. Um,
Yeah.
Thinking about, I won't go too off topic here, but like you think about people that keep their mind young, right? Like they're old, their body might be old, but they keep their mind so young because they're always learning, they're always staying curious. They're doing like general knowledge. I think about my father-in-law, right? Like he's like a general knowledge wizard. He's sharp as a tack, that guy. Like, and
Yeah.
he's like almost 80 years old, but like talk about business or property or anything like that. He's just like, he's on it and he knows what he's talking about. Of course, as you get older, you can get stuck in your ways and you can, you know,
Sure.
have a hard time looking outside of boxes that you've created for yourself. But like, if you can
Big
stay
time.
curious enough, you'll stay fresh minded. You'll uncover new, you turn over new stones, and you might find that thing that you just needed so badly to help then get you a little bit further. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah. Big time.
this conversation is a perfect example of that because that is how I've fallen into this. And I don't know about you. Well, you're stepping into the AI space as well, right? So, in a
Yeah.
capacity. So it's like,
Well, that's the funny part about this conversation is technically we have very similar businesses, right? Like very like there's a few things obviously that are different, but here you and I are having a conversation trying to figure out like, hey, what's working for you? Like what am I not seeing? Like what are other, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that those are the people when you understand, and I think it also comes from an abundance mindset, is like if you're so scared to talk to somebody else in your industry about what they're doing that's making them successful, that you have to realize that there's so much business out there to be had in every industry that you're in. So how do you create those partnerships or those how do you create the circle of people that maybe they're doing the exact same thing you're doing, but like they may say something that triggers something differently, or you're like, oh man, I never thought about it that way. Like I could do that with this client. It would help them tremendously. Like
well,
that's my mindset, right? It's
you
just like,
got
how do I learn?
like this is a funny example, and we'll wrap up quickly here, or not soon,
Yeah.
quickly, but sooner. You've got businesses that advertise side by side, right? Like on billboards. And like right now, I call it the battle of the heat pumps here in Victoria. Every bus that goes by has a huge heat pump advertised on it, all different companies. But like, do you think those business owners like get together and hang out and talk? Probably not, right? Like for
Yeah.
some reason, geographically, probably doesn't make sense to them because they all live in the same area. So like, I don't know what they would be sharing because they're like in direct competition. But then you look at realtors and stuff like that, which have signs up, all their own, but they interact with each other and they network and they talk because they do business with each other as well. And now then you have
Mhm.
this other realm, which is the internet space, and all of these like internet entrepreneurs like myself and yourself and similar businesses or businesses that are here and one's underneath or one's up or they're they're on level playing ground. But you should be able to have like these long conversations, understand, catch some little nuggets from each other, share information because like you said, like there's so much opportunity out there that you really aren't, once you've gone global with your opportunity or national, you're not
Yeah.
stepping on each other's toes and you're only going to end up learning from each other, and or you're going to find a partnership of some sort inside of that as well, right?
Big time.
Or some sort of like merger. You just don't know where it can take you. And so
The
yeah, it's kind
the
of
perfect example of this, and we can end on this if you want, but like I've talked to so many clients about their client life cycle, right? You and I have a conversation last week, and you didn't say anything to me that I didn't somewhat know already, right? But for whatever reason, the way you said it, I was like, I need to put this on paper. Like I need to, and it's not paper. I'm saying like I need to get this out of my head so that I can figure out how can I utilize this, right? You didn't say anything different, like I said, that I haven't heard before, but for whatever reason, in that conversation we're having, and I take 4 or 5 hours and I put this thing together, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a really good starting point now. And I used it a, a new client, and they're like, oh man, like I never thought about this. And I'm like, it took a conversation that I've had a million times before, but for whatever reason, you said it in a way where I
You
was
now
like,
it's
oh, I got to
you've
do
broken
something
it down.
different. It's got to be more visible, right? And for whatever reason, our conversation triggered that. And now I'm like, oh, this is a great starting point. And then I was able to implement it. And so it's like those are the little things that I think people wind up avoiding when they're so worried about the, competing with somebody, you know? So,
Yeah, well, IP is a
anyways, I'll
thing,
throw that
right?
out
No,
there.
and I agree. Yeah, no, let's leave it at that. I mean, it's funny you brought up the quiz in the beginning, and I'm like, oh, I like this already. As soon as he brought it up, I was like, that's a great idea because it's qualifying, right? It's a qualifying stage, and it creates a filter, but it also helps people just come to realization on stuff. So yeah, no, I mean, I
Yeah,
appreciate it, Drew. It's this is great. I love that. I love connecting with people, man. I think it's engaging
for
connection
sure.
is definitely like the path forward because like the relationships that you build are truly what will be the most valuable thing. They'll supersede everything else, right?
Big
All
time.
business, and you think about a marriage or kids or any relationship, they stand the test of time. So like the more you can create, the better you'll be off, in my opinion. So yeah, man,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna pause this here.